All right, and welcome to Nursing News You Can Use at 5. I'm Tina Baxter, your host. This is Wednesday, December the 4th, 2024. Very excited to start this new month with you as we get ready to get into our news. So let's go ahead and get with our affirmation for today. Okay. Our affirmation is I am learning to be more creative every day. I am learning to be more creative every day. That is our affirmation for today. From the Louise Hay calendar for 2024, let's get into it. All right, so we've got some great news coming up and just some more information for you. I can't wait to talk about it, but let's get started with the news. The first story is coming from the Washington Examiner, and it says Cuomo engaged in medical malpractice by covering up nursing home fatalities, according to a report. Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo engaged in medical malpractice when overseeing the COVID-19 pandemic and purposely covered up the tragic aftermath of his policy decisions to avoid responsibility, according to a newly released report. The House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic issued its final report on Monday, uncovering instances of fraud and misconduct by the government officials during the 2020 pandemic. Throughout their investigation, lawmakers found that Cuomo, quote, knowingly and willfully made false statements to the subcommittee on numerous occasions related to nursing home deaths. As a result, the subcommittee has referred Cuomo to the Justice Department for criminal prosecution. One of the top 5 findings of the 520-page report concluded that Cuomo engaged in malpractice by engaging in a cover-up scheme with the New York State Executive Board to hide the number of nursing home deaths caused by his statewide executive order. Beginning in March of 2020, many states issued guidance to reduce exposure to COVID-19 among vulnerable populations in nursing homes by barring those diagnosed with the disease from accessing those facilities. However, on March 25th, New York issued a contradictory policy that required nursing homes and long-term care facilities to still admit individuals who tested positive for COVID-19. That policy resulted in more than 9,000 COVID related patients being admitted to nursing homes between 2025 of 2020, March 2025 of 2020 and May 8th, 2020, according to a report. This unjustifiably exposed vulnerable nursing home populations to COVID-19, causing predictable but disastrous consequences, including excess deaths, according to this report. So, of course, there's more that goes into this story. There's a lot of pushback. Those of you that were in New York at that time may remember there's a lot of debate and questions. And I have to say, for a lot of officials, there's a lot of debate and questions about what we should do, how we should do it. And so daily they were coming out with new mandates. So if you remember that this was a very difficult time. So the former governor's office later published a report on July 6th, seeking to tie the number of high COVID deaths related to nursing homes to be the fault of the nursing home staff rather than the result of Cuomo's March 25th directive. So again, you've got a respiratory illness. And I'm just going to say this for the everyday standard flu. Having worked in long-term care, both as an aide and as a nurse practitioner, even the standard everyday flu, a 24-hour stomach virus, once it gets started in that facility, it's very easy for it to be carried from patient to patient, from resident to resident, from staff to staff. And so for something that at that time that was highly contagious, you didn't have enough equipment. And as I previously reported on this show, and those of you know, during that time, the hospitals got all the equipment. Nursing homes got barely any of the equipment that they needed, masks, hand sanitizer. They were the last to get that. So to blame it on the nursing homes, now I'm not saying the nursing homes didn't, some, not all, but some probably had some missteps, but to blame it on them, I think it is disingenuous. So let's go on and hear about this. So the report was heavily edited by the New York Executive Chamber to show more causality, lawmakers found. The executive chamber also removed nursing home deaths that occurred outside of the facilities, such as deaths that occurred following a transfer to the hospital, resulting in a report that was not fully transparent. So in other words, if they died in the hospital, then technically they weren't a COVID patient at the nursing home, even though they started at the nursing home. So those were some of those issues. It says, however, the July 6th report was not independently drafted or peer reviewed by the New York Health Department, despite claims from Cuomo and his staff that it was, according to the report. Instead, lawmakers found that Cuomo not only reviewed the report, but was also intimately involved in editing its findings to make sure that they appear more casual. So, again, very big questions about this. It's not clear whether the DOJ will move forward with recommendations to prosecute him. The department also has been investigating the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic, according to the report, which lawmakers discovered despite not being previously reported. However, the report could have negative effects for Cuomo as he weighs a bid as New York's mayor. So it looks like he's thinking about running for mayor. We'll see how that will work out for him. There were some other things that came out, so I'm not sure how well, again, that's going to work out for him, but we'll see. A spokesman for Cuomo rejected the report's finding, calling it flat out false. Instead, the spokesman pointed to federal data showing New York sitting at 39 in terms of pro rata nursing home deaths. Well, if you're not counting the ones that got COVID at the hospital, at the nursing home, they went to the hospital, that makes sense. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of turmoil during that time. If you want to hear more about this, head on over to the Washington Examiner for that full report. Okay. Okay, so this was kind of disturbing for me and kind of interesting. So this next story, I decided to include it because, for one thing, it has to do with legal things that are going on and in patient care. And I thought this would be a good something to react to. So this is a Florida woman crushed by wheelchair exposes loophole in state law. And this is what I find interesting. So there are nurse registries. This is out of Florida. So this is nurse registries are businesses that provide nurses to care for injured or disabled clients in their homes. They do background screenings, arrange schedules, pay the nurses, and accept payments. But an I-Team report, this is a report from their local news, has learned if there's something goes wrong, the companies aren't liable under Florida law. So Christy Coram of Orange Park, Florida, says she had a spinal injury from a jet ski accident in 2002. She says the injury left her paralyzed from the chest down. I've always had to be dependent on people since my injury, and you want to be able to know that you can trust the people that are there to help you. Christy and her family hired a nurse from River City Home Health to help her with her daily tasks. They said, we were told about this company, and then being an agency, we felt that they had the resources, they had the people, said Kenneth Coram, Christy's father. The company is categorized by Florida Department of Health as a licensed nurse registry. So I thought that was kind of interesting that this is not quite like a home care agency. I'm going to take a look and see what they actually call that, a licensed nurse registry. Licensed nurse registry. And we're going to say specifically in Florida. Okay, so it's a company that connects clients with qualified nurses, certified nursing assistants, home health aides, and companions to provide in-home care, acting as a middleman to match the patients with independent contractors. So this is why this is important. So the agency then, they're just like a staffing agency. They don't train people. They just make sure they got the credentials and say, yep, this person is an independent contractor and they meet the credentials, so you may want to hire them. So this is what they say. While being regulated and licensed by the Florida Agency for Healthcare Administration to ensure quality standards are met, essentially they facilitate the hiring of caregivers without directly employing them. So because they don't directly employ them, that is why then she can't technically sue them. So let's get back to the story. So I kind of want to explain that because I thought, oh, this is something new that I hadn't considered or thought of. So, okay, so Medicaid compensated River City Home Health for Christie's care, but she no longer uses the company after a terrifying incident. She says she has anxiety coming out of the van. According to a lawsuit, Christie's nurse left her unattended after driving her home from a doctor's appointment. She unstrapped me from the van and then walked away inside. The ramp did not deploy, and I drove straight out, falling face first with my chair on top of me. So, first of all, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't leave somebody like that. And I don't know. Anyway, so Christy called her dad, Kenneth, who rushed from a construction project he was working on across town. First thing when I pulled up, I see the wheelchair still laying on the ground outside. He said the wheelchair weighs about 400 pounds. So my question is, she went inside. She didn't come out to check? A handwritten report from the nurse said Christy was laughing a lot. She said she couldn't believe she had done that without looking first. You have a nurse there so that if there's a medical event, you've got a licensed qualified care, said attorney Bill Gower, who is representing Christy. Instead, the nurse got a blanket from the patio. I put the blanket under Christy and pulled her in the house. So at least she did come back and get her. According to the complaint, the nurse dragged her through the yard and into her bedroom where she used a lift to hoist Christy into bed. 102 feet it was to my room. Both legs were broken. Her left arm was fractured. So, okay, that's the other thing. If this occurred and this happened, why didn't you call for an ambulance? Why did you drag her into the house? I don't know. I'm just saying. This is why I'm like this is a big thing. I'm just asking these questions. So the complaint said the nurse left as Christy's condition was deteriorating. What do you mean she left? Kenneth said at one point her daughter quit breathing. Medical records showed Christy suffered a head injury and spent 2 weeks in a coma. The whole time they said, we don't expect a whole lot. It didn't look good. Miraculously, she pulled through. I remember when I first came out of the coma, them telling me everything that happened and showing me pictures and everything. It was all very surreal. Christy spent 6 weeks in the hospital and months in rehab. Medical bills are still arriving. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars, at least what we've gotten so far. So here's the issue then. So they filed a lawsuit against the nurse in River City Home Health alleging negligence. A Florida law passed in 2014 defines nurses working for nurse registries as independent contractors. So then it exempts the nurse registries from the management and liability for these contractors. And so Christy is saying that they should be held accountable. She says you can't even have a car without insurance. So how do you run a licensed business for healthcare without being responsible for what you do? So there are 1,173 nurse registries licensed in Florida, including 178 in the Tampa Bay area. So my question is here, if you're nurses, you can chime in here on this one. If you're an independent contractor nurse and you're doing a nurse registry type job, because I did talk to a nurse that was doing that, would not that nurse then have her own malpractice insurance that they would have to use to cover them in case of something like this happens? So that's questions. So the news station, ABC Action News, did reach out to River City Health owner, but she didn't respond. They went by their office. The doors were locked, no lights, no answer. The judge in Christie's lawsuit denied River City Homes Health motion to dismiss, so the lawsuit will proceed. Okay. So recently, the U.S. Department of Labor found a Sarasota nurse registry company, quote, misclassified caregivers as independent contractors in a case involving payment of overtime. Gower believes that might open the door to a different interpretation of the law, which would allow the companies to be held accountable in cases where a person is injured. In the meantime, he says we'll all be paying the price. If anything happens, it's not the nursing registry who are going to pay for it. It's going to be the taxpayers. It's going to be Florida citizens. So that came out, and I wanted to take a look at that because that was like, ooh, what's happening here? And so I wanted to share this. So I looked at the actual complaint because they did have that. So I thought, oh, this is interesting. We have the actual complaint. And so, oh no, this is another complaint. Sorry, this is another case. So we'll get to that in a moment. Okay, so that's another case. That's why I said let me look at this and talk to you about what's happening, because as nurses, if you're out there doing this independently as a business owner, what kind of safeguards do you put in place? This is why I say it's very important that you look at the full cost of what you're doing when you're going into your own business. All right, here's another article. Uh, let me see if I can find it. Okay, so excuse me. All right, I'll get. Oh, here it is. This happens to be a nurse that filed against her employer, and I do have the actual complaint here. This is what I find interesting, because this is that time of year when we're doing some things with the holidays, and we want to make sure we're respectful of people. But here we go. So this one says this has nothing to do with the holiday in particular, but it does have to do with individual rights. So it says Wiccan woman sues Lexington nursing home citing religious discrimination. It's from Fox 56 in Lexington, Kentucky. A woman sued her former employer over religious discrimination she believed got her fired. Court documents show that Rebecca Spears from Florida filed the lawsuit in Fayette Circuit Court against Signature Healthcare at Tanbark for alleged religious discrimination and retaliation. According to the complaint, Spears was treated differently after disclosing she didn't participate in morning meeting prayers, and the treatment was, quote, preventing her from accessing important work-related information because she was Wiccan. When Spears filed a discrimination complaint with the company, she alleged that no official investigation began, and she was later terminated because she was, quote, no longer a good fit. The nursing home responded in federal court saying that the lawsuit should be dismissed because Spears signed an agreement saying employment-related duties would be handled by mediation or arbitration. So this is another thing that I wanted to bring this out because of that little clause there about mediation or arbitration. And so you have to be very careful when you're signing some of these things. That's why I always say make sure you have an attorney review it before you sign it. All right, so this is what she's saying happened. So here is the actual complaint that was filed in court. They did post that, so I wanted to share that. So I'm going to skip all the preliminary stuff about venue and jurisdiction and all that. So here are the facts of the case according to the complaint. Spears is a former employee of Signature Healthcare. She began working on around June 30th of 21. She worked as an MDS coordinator and licensed practical nurse. She is a practicing member of the Wiccan religion, placing her in a protected class based on her religion. In December of 22, a sprinkler burst at the facility where Spears worked, leading to flooding and eventually toxic mold growing in the facility. So again, when they have the story, they're focusing on her religion, but then in the complaint, it's talking about toxic mold. So this is why I was like really kind of confused, but I'm reacting with this to you, with you at the same time. It says by January 2023, she began to experience health symptoms, including coughing due to toxic mold. She reported her concerns about the mold with the then administrator, Lauren Sword, but Signature did not take any action, according to this. Again, in March of 2023, she reported the mold issue to the new administrator, Israel Ray, but he also failed to address it. So this was another complaint. In April of 23, Spears was excluded from the daily morning meetings by Ray because she did not participate in his Christian prayers during the meeting. So this is where this is coming in. Ray confronted Spears when she did not participate in the prayers, and Spears explained that she did not share his religious beliefs as she was a Wiccan. Ray, a Christian, was offended by her response and began discriminating against her. So this is what they're alleging in their suit. So I'm just reading what they say. Shortly after this exchange, Ray barred Spears from attending future meetings, isolating her from the rest of the staff and preventing her from accessing important work-related information. Spears made another complaint about the mold issue in the facility to Megan Hall from HR and Cindy Simpson, a regional manager, in April of 23. Spears also complained about being excluded from the meetings by Ray. Signature Health Care Policy Central Healthcare has a policy against discrimination and harassment. The discrimination in treatment violates the discrimination policy. Central Healthcare has a policy to investigate reports of violations of the discrimination policy. So, according to this, they did not investigate reports. Investigation should include interviewing people, interviewing the subject, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, we're not even going to go into all that. So, this is what they are alleging that happened. So, going down further, it says by failing to investigate the first protected complaint, defendant ratified the discriminatory treatment. Spears' complaints were dismissed, and HR ratified Ray's discriminatory conduct. Spears submitted a final complaint with HR on May 10th of 23 regarding both the mold condition and discrimination by Ray. Days later, on May 12th of 23, Spears was called into a meeting with Simpson and Hall. Simpson informed Spears that she was being terminated for unspecified conduct and behavior and that she was no longer a good fit. Simpson refused to provide any details of the reason for termination. The termination seems to be, according to them, was retaliation for reports and complaints. So we will see. So they also have a progressive disciplinary policy that allegedly they did not follow. So if you want to look at this full complaint, head on over to their story because they do have a link to this full complaint. There's a lot in here. It's like 16 pages long. I don't have time to read it. But here are some things. And I bring this stuff up because as business owners, we need to make sure that we don't run afoul of the law in these areas. And so they had a policy, and it sounds like they didn't follow it, according to this. So we'll see how it plays out. But if there's any more that comes up about that, I'll let you know. All right, here's our next story, and then we're going to take our first break. Hippocratic AI and Nurses on Boards Coalition announced a strategic partnership to empower nurses in healthcare technology. So this is from Business Wire, a press release for Hippocratic AI. Hippocratic AI, the company building the first safety-focused large language model for healthcare, today announced a new strategic partnership with the Nurses on Boards Coalition to expand nurses' influence in the healthcare technology space. The collaboration underscores Hippocratic AI's commitment to investing in the future of nursing and empowering nurses to take an active role in the shaping of the next generation of healthcare technology. The partnership focuses on key initiatives such as developing leadership models to prepare nurses for roles on healthcare technology boards and advisory councils, as well as conducting workshops on the application of AI. These will aim to bridge the gap between nursing and technology with a strong emphasis on governance, development, education, and hands-on opportunities. So, Chief Nursing Officer of Hippocratic AI, Dr. Amy McCarthy, says this collaboration not only elevates the voice of nursing in shaping AI solutions, but also strengthens the ethical and human-centered principles at the heart of our mission to improve patient outcomes and transfer healthcare delivery. So if you're not aware, Nurses on Boards was created after the 2010 Institute of Medicine report, The Future of Nursing Leading Change, that came out that recommended increasing the number of nurse leaders and pivotal decision-making roles on boards and commissions. So as a person, I have joined the Indiana Nurses on Boards Coalition, and I was able to sit on a local nonprofit board and help influence policy that way. And so there's a lot of different board positions, and so we're advocating for nurses to be included on more boards. And that's one of the things that I ask when I am interviewing with a place or interviewing an institution. Is it who's on your board, and do you have any nurses, particularly if you are a hospital or healthcare institution? So we'll be looking to check that out even more to make sure that they're following what they should be doing. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. Nurses, are you tired, frustrated, and burnt out? Are you tired of being called a hero, but feeling like a zero? Are you ready to break free? I'm inviting you to feel the sun. Find the joy and passion in your nursing career. Register for the Kickstart 2024 Challenge with the Nurse Shark Academy. Come and feel the sun. All right. So that had a little promo from last year. If you remember last year, we had our Kickstart 2024. Well, we're going to do something similar again, but we're going to move forward in 2025. And so be on the lookout for that. I wanted to share that. Just get us ready because we're going to go into 2025 ready to take on the challenge. So I wanted to take a stop for a moment. And yes, I have some comments here from Neva Brooks. Thank you, Neva, for talking. She says, very interesting. Thank you for bringing this to our awareness. Florida is still finding nurses and agencies who were involved in the falsifying credentials. Yes, the Florence Nightingale, the Nightingale raid or whatever they did. Investigation. Yeah, and so they are hiring unqualified people. It is becoming a big issue. Other states, unfortunately, have been caught up in this as well. She said, yes, she should have had her own malpractice insurance, especially if acting as a private contractor. Yes, I don't understand why you wouldn't do that. So, nurses, if you are out there working independently, please have your own malpractice insurance, particularly if you're doing patient care, because you don't want to be unprotected. So if you want to know about different places that you can go, just message me. I know of some places that you can get your malpractice insurance. It's so important to have as a business owner. Let me tell you, you're out there, if you're out there working as an independent contractor, guess what? You are a business owner because your license is your business. So you better protect it. All right, let's go ahead and get into our next story here. I just found this kind of interesting, and this is coming out of Colorado. It's a Fox 21 news story. But what drew my eye to this is that more and more we're seeing incidents of violence in long-term care facilities, and I don't know. It's just really strange. And all of a sudden, I don't know if it's because there's more awareness or I'm more aware of it, but it just seems to be happening more and more. So this is coming out of Pueblo, Colorado, and it says the Pueblo Police Department has released the identity and mugshot of a suspect in a homicide at the Bonaventure of Pueblo retirement home. 72-year-old Kathy Lawton was arrested after being interviewed by police in connection to the homicide of 85-year-old Larry Lawton. So apparently they must have been related somehow. She is currently charged with second-degree murder and is being placed in the Pueblo County jail on a $250,000 bond. And so if you would see her picture, she just looks like a cute little old lady, right? The police department has confirmed that the suspect and the victim in the November 24th homicide on the west side of Pueblo were both residents of Bonaventure of Pueblo Senior Living. Officers originally responded to a report of a deceased man in the retirement community after 5 p.m. on Sunday, November the 24th. When they arrived, officers interviewed a suspect who was later confirmed to also be a resident of the independent living section of the community, and the suspect was subsequently arrested. The Pueblo County coroner has since identified the victim as 85-year-old Larry Lawton of Pueblo. The coroner said Lawton was unalived in an apparent domestic violence incident. So again, this is another domestic violence incident that's been happening, where you have we had the case of the husband that ended up pew-pewing, shooting the wife. We had a case of other things, so of the son going in there and killing family members. So what's happening that all of a sudden these things are starting to happen? Or maybe we're just figuring it out, but there's something going on. And again, I keep saying we need to do a better job of protecting our seniors in those types of buildings. All right. So let's go on. There's a couple of stories here. There's one story that's been on social media a lot right now, and I'm going to talk about it. And I may even show the video, but we'll talk about it. Okay, so this first one is coming from nurse.com, and it says nurses in the media, missing voices, and healthcare advocacy. And this is one of the things that I've talked about on this show before. I said we need to have nurses being sources for journalists, because we have a wealth of information. And if you're a journalist and you're listening to this, you need to talk to a nurse. You're doing these stories on healthcare. Who better to talk to than the nurses who are there 24/7? We are the experts here. All right, so let's get on. So during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, I truly recognize the depth of critical issue Nurses were not visible in media reporting on the outbreak, at least not in the way I had hoped. Instead of being highlighted as the experts that nurses are, leading discussions, guiding public health measures, and sharing critical insights, we were often portrayed as victims of a broken healthcare system. News stories focus heavily on the emotional and physical toll, frustration, and toxic working conditions we endured, missing the chance to showcase nurses as pivotal leaders and educators in managing the COVID-19 outbreak. As doctors, hospital administrators, and public health officials dominated the airwaves, nurses' valuable perspectives remained buried. And that was an argument that I had all along. I said, why didn't you talk to the ones that were at the bedside and doing it and finding out what it is that they need instead of just saying, oh, they're angels and yeah. I mean, we are, but you know. So she said, fortunately, I had an outlet to make a difference. As the most watched nurse on NBC during the pandemic, I led the national conversation, providing vital research, education, and real-time guidance for both the public and healthcare professionals. This wasn't just about visibility, it was about reestablishing our authority as healthcare experts and ensuring that nursing voices shape the public health narrative. So this is Alice Benjamin, who is a clinical nurse specialist. And I just think that's awesome. Master's prepared clinical nurse specialist. A lot of people don't even know what that is. The representation of nurses in the media isn't a new issue. There's a 1997 Woodhall study of nursing and media found that nurses were featured in less than 4% of health-related news stories. When the study was revisited 20 years later, the results were even more disappointing. Now, nurses were then only mentioned in 2% of health news stories. And that's one of the reasons why I routinely pitch for stories. If I feel like I fit the mold for that, I'm pitching for that because I want people to know that we are experts in our field. Hence the Nurse Shark Academy. All right, let's go. Shameless plug right there. All right, let's go on. So, despite our critical roles in patient care, our voices remain drowned out by others in healthcare. This underrepresentation limits not just individual nurses, but the profession as a whole, weakening our ability to advocate for better care and public policy. It's not that nurses don't have stories to tell, we do, and they're powerful. Nurses hold patients' hands during their most vulnerable moments, make quick decisions under pressure, and navigate the realities of healthcare that others often miss. But sharing these stories effectively requires media skills that many nurses haven't been trained in, which is why, again, I have this show. Media savvy remains an untapped area of professional development for nurses, leaving a gap that has real consequences for public health, research dissemination, and policy advocacy. Take, for example, the issue of healthcare disparities. Nurses witness inequities in real time, whether it's a lack of resources in underserved communities or barriers to preventive care. We see how these issues affect patients daily, but our ability to draw attention to these problems is limited without media literacy. So again, there's always this backlash too. There's so many different organizations that they get so nervous. Ooh, the nurses are talking. Let's keep the nurses from talking because they may share what's actually going on in the environment. So there's this whole issue, and then you have, and this is again my experience, but I've seen it in other places where administrators and those that are don't believe nurses, or you don't really know what's going on, and they kind of poo-poo what the nurse has to say. Yeah, we know what's going on. We've got eyes. We can read reports too. We can look at the bottom line and look at budgets. Don't think we don't know what's actually going on, Mr. CEO, who just got your new boat, but yet you don't have money for raises for nurses. Anyway, you see, I'm going to get heated up and on my soapbox. But I just want to say that these are some things that are coming. So if you want to learn about how to have these conversations and be in the media yourself, join this conversation. There's a webinar that Nurse Alice gives on how to shape health policy and public perception in the media. You can head on over to nurse.org and sign up for this. I mean, nurse.com and sign up for this. And I will actually post this link in the chat because I think that's just so important. So I'm going to copy this link and post it in the chat like right now. All right, so let's go on to our next story. This is the one. Yeah, this is the one. Everybody's probably seen it. Some of you may have seen it, but everybody's talking about it. here we are. There's a lot of news today, but I just want to talk about this one for sure. It says this is from nurse.org, and it says nurses react to video of family holding nurse hostage on Thanksgiving. Yes, they were holding her hostage. So, a family Thanksgiving encounter with a nurse at a nursing home has gone viral on TikTok. In the video, three family members are arguing with the nurse, accusing her of inadequate patient treatment, a poor attitude, and they insist that she remain in the room while they wait for a manager to help resolve the issue. Nurses were quick to comment on the video, saying the family was holding the nurse hostage. So the family was filming this, right? They didn't talk, they didn't really show what happened and led up to all of this. They're just in there. You see the video, they're just berating this nurse, right? And then they upload the video thinking they're going to get all the sympathy. When in actuality, they were holding her hostage. So the original 10-minute video uploaded by family members has been removed. So then they took it down. Along with the originating accounts on TikTok and Instagram, but many other creators captioned the original and shared their thoughts about it. So one of them happens to be Nurse Erica. You may have followed her. I do follow her as well on Instagram, and some other nurses. And yeah, it was on there. I first heard it from APR in Beauty. I saw her stuff. So reaction videos played more than 10 million times across a variety of accounts and platforms. Abby Lynn 0715 summed up many nurses' reactions. These family members posted the video thinking that everybody was going to hate on her, but no, because let me tell you what, there's an army of nurses and we're freaking pissed off. We put up with shite like this every single day. And so here's what they're saying. So Nurse Erica warned the users that the video was triggering and acknowledged the video was missing the beginning for context. However, she highlighted many issues with the entitled family members. One, telling the nurse you're not leaving, which is a crime, holding someone hostage against their will. And I kudos to that nurse, because she did kind of raise her voice a little bit because that they were shouting over her. But kudos to that nurse for remaining calm, because Tina probably would have just said, you're not going to keep me here so you can continue to yell at me. I will, however, call the police and have you escorted out. How about that? But that would have been Tina. But anyway, so the second point was threatening to report her, potentially jeopardizing her license when they look foolish, and I would file a report against them. Posted the video online, which is slander and defamation of character, so that nurse then could potentially sue that family. She might want to think about that. So again, unfortunately, nurses frequently face challenges dealing with difficult and rude family members, which adds emotional strain to already demanding roles. So allegedly, this is what happened. The family came in on Thanksgiving. The nurse had just come in on her shift, and they're like, Dad's wet or whatever. Why didn't you change it? And he just started laying into her. And she was trying to explain, hey, I haven't got a chance to get down here. The aides should have been down here to take, to do this. I'll go check on it, find out what's happening. I have 30 other patients. She was trying to explain, hey, look, I've been passing meds and seeing 30 other patients. I don't know how long this person's been wet, because it kind of sounds like to me, it wasn't that he was wet the whole time. So she walked in and asked him, hey, do you need change? The guy said no. Resident says no. Refused care. So then they're mad because they just listen to what he's had to say. Yes, because he has rights. We can't oversee that. If he doesn't want to get changed at that time, we're not going to put up a fuss and an argument. We're going to come back later. So then you've got this family, and it's not just one person. There's several people in here just, yelling at this nurse. And so again, as nurses, we have to be professional in our interactions, and this is true. So it says the viral nursing home confrontation has highlighted a harsh reality for many nurses dealing with rude and confrontational family members as a daily occurrence. These encounters often stem from heightened emotions, misunderstandings, and misplaced frustrations, but they add significant stress to an already demanding profession. So I have myself have been in the place of, I just walked into the room and they start yelling at me, and I'm like, I just got here. I had a patient, it escalated fast. I had a patient family angry at me for something that happened in the morning meeting for which I was not present. And I'm like, I don't know what happened in the morning meeting. Can you tell me what happened so we can have a discussion about it? But they come in there attacking and yelling at me. I wasn't there. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You're going to have to tell me what happened. I was not present. So these things happen. And I want to say to those of you that are watching that are not in healthcare and maybe you've been a resident or patient before, give the nurses some grace, okay? The more you act like that and come at people like that, the worse off the situation is going to be. It becomes heightened. It like the situation of the young man where they were recording the young man. The nurses and the doctors are like, he is gone. They're like, continue CPR, and it was a whole big thing. Emotions run heavy, and then they're posting stuff and all this stuff, and emotions run heavy. And when you're heightened like that, people aren't going to be able to hear you. So I'm going to say, if you have something and you wanted to get resolved, coming in that way is not the way to do it. Because what could happen, like it happened in that other case, is that they'll just call police and have you escorted from the building, and then you get banned from the building, right? Because you're disruptive or threatening. So that's not the way to do it. So I just say that, please, let's be kinder to each other, right? Can we be kind to each other? Okay. All right. So this is another article that I want to talk about real quick. This is from Business Wire again. NURSA, N-U-R-S-A, sent in a press release on their survey, and they found that 72% of independent contract nurses also hold full or part-time jobs. NURSA, a nationwide platform that exists to put a nurse at the bedside of every patient in need, today announced the results of a survey examining the work and career preferences of its national nurse clinician user base. Survey reports responses from more than 2,000 registered nurses, licensed practical nurses, and certified nurse assistants across 44 states provides a deeper understanding of career trends among nurses that opt for per diem work. As a flexible healthcare staffing solution, NURSA connects qualified nurses with facilities in need of clinical staff to fill short-term shifts. The platform acts as a digital switchboard, enabling nurses across all specialties to sign up and find per diem shifts at nearby medical facilities. So here are their findings. 72% of the clinicians who use NURSA also have a full-time or part-time job. 28% reported working exclusively through staffing platforms. 33% of users are seeking full-time or part-time positions, and 10% would consider accepting the right job if offered. And up to 75% use at least one additional staffing app. So again, this is something that we know. Nurses really want to be more in charge of their schedule, have more options, have more flexibility. I just kind of wish healthcare would keep up with the needs for nurses. Okay, this is another story that came out, and I'm not exactly sure what led up to this. We're still finding out. And my condolences to the family. But I'm pretty sure you've probably heard about the CEO of United Healthcare who was unalived today. The executive Brian Thompson was unalived in what police describe as a brazen targeted attack outside a hotel where the company was holding an investor meeting. And I want to say that I'm not using those terms because I'm trying to be disrespectful. I'm using those terms because I do not want to trigger something on the algorithm. Okay. So we just have to talk about it in a way that we can. The suspect was last spotted in Central Park, investigators said at a news conference. So here's what we know. The CEO was one of the United Healthcare is one of the nation's largest health insurers. He was unalived outside a hotel in Midtown Manhattan on Wednesday morning, this morning, and what the New York Police Commissioner called a brazen targeted attack. He was killed just after 6:45 a.m. Jessica Tisch said the gunman, that guy waited for Mr. Thompson outside the hotel, ignoring other passerbys before staging the attack. So we don't exactly know why this happened, although there are some theories about it has to do with the whole change.org thing when they had the Change Healthcare thing, when they had the cyber attack. So they were wondering if that might have been part of it. We don't know. So I'm not going to speculate. I'm just, giving what we know so far from the news story. So there's many things like that, but this is still an ongoing story. But I wanted to make you aware of that because I'm pretty sure people will be talking about it. And it's again this escalation of violence in healthcare. And that's why I bring it up. So we don't know exactly why this happened. Um, but as details come out and if something comes up that is newsworthy for this show, we will share it. But I did want to share my condolences to the family, and hopefully they will find the individual that was involved in this. All right, here's another study that came out. It says U.S. trails developed democracies and healthcare costs for older adults. This is from The Guardian. It says older Americans spend more on healthcare than peers in 10 other developed democracies, a Commonwealth Fund report found. The new report highlights how Medicare, the public health insurance program for people older than 65 and people who are disabled, has significant cost sharing requirements, including copays, deductibles, and no ceiling of out-of-pocket costs. Even though nearly all older adults in the U.S. are covered by Medicare, the study highlights areas where the program has room to improve. In some countries, almost no older adults are skipping or delaying care because of cost. Medicare is available through two programs: traditional Medicare, which is known as fee-for-service, and Medicare Advantage, which is managed by private insurers. Traditional Medicare lacks many benefits older Americans and disabled people need, such as vision, dental, hearing care, and long-term and home care. While Medicare Advantage offers some of these benefits, it has been criticized as unfairly denying care and being unnecessarily costly, and has been the target of federal fraud investigations. So these are some things that have been going on. In fact, there's just a story that came out a few days ago about one of the insurers. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but they found that they were systematically denying care for needed things, particularly in mental health care, to save money. Conservatives have proposed further privatization of Medicare by instituting a default enrollment in Medicare Advantage. So, in other words, instead of putting you in traditional Medicare, they're going to force you into one of these Medicare Advantage plans. And not every Medicare Advantage plan is the same. This is open enrollment season, by the way. So, if you have loved ones that need to enroll, this is the time to do it. But so you have to choose which plan you want to be in. Does it cover the doctors that you want to see? Will it pay for the medications that you have to take? Will it provide you with transportation? Will it provide you with a gym membership? Will it put all these things? Can you get your teeth fixed? All these different things that you need to look at when you're picking a plan. So the study also found that almost a quarter of older Americans in the U.S. spend $2,000 or more in healthcare in the past year, compared to less than 5% in France and the Netherlands. Similarly, older adults in the U.S. reported the highest level of cost barrier to care, although less than 10% reported encountering such barriers. 1 in 5 older adults in the U.S., Australia, and Canada reported skipping needed dental care, compared with less than 5% in the Netherlands and Germany. Less than 5% of adults in all countries reported skipping needed mental health care because of cost. So again, the problem is I don't understand why vision and dental care and mental health is not all rolled in, because that's all part of health care. You're going to say, okay, well, your heart's good, but your teeth are bad. Well, that's going to cause more heart disease. So you have to deal with the whole person. We have this mentality of piecing everything out. The U.S., as we are aware, has the most expensive health system in the world. In spite of these high prices, it performs poorly on metrics of health equity, accessibility, and outcomes. The study highlights how vital Medicare is for older adults in the U.S., but it also underscores the challenges of affording needed care. Rising costs are forcing many older Americans to pay out more out of the pocket, leading to delayed care, poor health, and higher long-term spending. And I've seen this every day as a prescriber, as a clinician. I see this. I order medication. Medication works for the patient. All of a sudden, because it's a new plan year, they decide they're not covering it anymore. So we have to play the game of, can we find a medication that will work for them? And you can say, well, just do a prior authorization. Yes, but they're just going to deny it. And then you have to go to appeal. And then most of the time they will deny the appeal because they just decided we just want to pay. We prefer this other drug, and that other drug may not work. So again, these are some of those issues that we find every day. All right, I got a couple more stories here, and then we'll be heading on out and talk about some announcements. But this is from Springfield News Sun, and it says Wittenberg announces new online nursing program amidst cuts, president leaving. So I find this kind of interesting. It says, what we normally teach in 3 years is done in 16 months in this program, said Marie Bashaw, professor and director of nursing. It will be taught for 16 straight months from January to May and follow the degree progression building on previous courses. It will align with the current clinicals that are already in place here at Wittenberg. We anticipate a strong enrollment for this program. Although a new online program is being added, the university previously announced it would cut dozens of jobs, including 24 faculty, and would end their music and language programs, as well as some sports amid budget problems. President Mike Franson's term will also end on June 30th of 2025. With 63 credits to be completed in 16 months, this program is for people who have a non-nursing baccalaureate degree or higher degree. Students admitted to the program will need to have earned a non-nursing bachelor's degree and completed 4 ABSN prerequisite courses, which are anatomy and physiology, statistics, microbiology, and chemistry as a condition of enrollment. So, by the way, there's a lot of people that don't know that nurses have to take anatomy and physiology, statistics, microbiology, and chemistry as prerequisites to get into the program. A lot of people don't know that. So I just thought I'd let you know. Students can get the prerequisites in before they start the new program, which was developed to cater to the busy schedules of aspiring nurses. Offering a blend of interactive online coursework and hands-on clinical experience, this program allows students to pursue their nursing education without compromising their current commitments. With asynchronous learning modules, students can study at their own pace and engage with course materials when it suits them best, whether that's early morning or late at night. Now, I have to say, I like the flexibility that this affords the program. I'm just concerned about putting all the stuff that you have to learn in that short period of time. The caveat to that is basically what they're getting is like almost an associate degree because they've already have a bachelor's degree in something else. So just going to keep an eye on that. But let's talk about those issues and basic nursing education. And what do you think about that? Let me know. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this. Let's get to this next story. And this is our Nurses Making a Difference story. So I wanted to end on the news segment on this positive note. And it says, Middle Tennessee nurses collected donations for Hurricane Helene victims. A group of nurses in Middle Tennessee have one simple request when it comes to its neighbors to the east. They want others to remember those who are still rebuilding their lives after the devastation of Hurricane Helene in western North Carolina. They are now spending hours daily to gather, sort, and ask for donations for those still recovering. Lauren Markham says, I'm a collector right now. We all are. She explained how there is a system to their collection, so there is order. They have limited volunteers there to work, so we want to make it as easy as possible for volunteers to work. Collecting for others devastated by Hurricane Helene, Markham's garage is now the center of the donation operation that is now nonstop. Our mission is to go down there and take care of people and let them know that they are not forgotten. Markham went to see firsthand how the storm changed her hometown, North Carolina, only it was one she didn't recognize. Historically, nothing of this magnitude has ever happened here. People weren't expecting this. The mudslides snapping 30-foot pines like they were splinters. Motivated to do her part, she came back to ask those she knew who would help her help others. There's such a great need that as nurses, we work every day to save lives and restore lives. We're doing that in a different way with this mission. Little by little, her nursing family helped grow this collection into truckloads. And so there's a great picture of all these containers and trucks. So they're going to give them some things that they need and want. She says, we have a lot of gently used toys, but we have a lot of new toys as well. We're all kids at heart, and thinking about them at Christmas time makes them excited. So they're collecting things for Christmas. They're collecting needed supplies. So I want to say congratulations to those nurses and thank you for all that you do. You're definitely a nurse making a difference. So I'm going to go ahead and close the news segment out. And let's talk about some exciting things that are happening. So this week, hopefully by the end of the week, we'll be having our posts up for our 5-day challenge. So the end of December, beginning of January, that last week, right after Christmas, we're going to get into our 5-day challenge about building your nurse business. And it's doesn't cost you anything to be a part of the challenge. And we're going to talk about how to get started and make 2025 your best year ever. So we're going to talk about that. That's coming up. Also, I'm running a special for those of you that are local and you want to take a CPR class, a first aid class, TB validation class. If you just use the promo code HOLIDAY when you sign up for one of the classes, you will get $5 off for the month of December. So I'm running that promotion because I wanted to give back for Christmas time and get you a chance to get all that stuff that you need done before the beginning of the year. Get your CPR renewed, get your TB validation renewed, get all that stuff ready. Nursing students, if you're getting ready to start clinical in January, you probably need to get all this stuff taken care of. So sign up for the class. We have those available at Baxter Professional Services Health Education.com. All right, that's it for me. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye for now.